Actually?
This one.
Oh my gosh.
Hey everyone, so besides trout fishing in the summertime, another popular game fish species in British Columbia is kokanee. Kokanee are landlocked sockeye salmon, so unlike other Pacific salmon species, they don't go out into the ocean due to geographical barriers such as a landslide or something like that, so they're trapped in the lake. So they'll spend, like I said, they'll spend their adult life in the lake and they'll move into a stream to spawn just like any other salmon species. And then the cycle continues when the next generation hatch from eggs, they will move down into the lake and will spend 2 to 3 years in the lake again. So unlike sockeye salmon, kokanee actually don't grow very big due to the low abundance of food in the lake compared to the ocean. So the average size of a kokanee is roughly between 1 and 2 pounds. Occasionally, you'll find some kokanee up to 4 or 5 pounds in some of the interior lakes, which are more productive. There's more food for them to eat. But generally, the fish are pretty small, so you got to use pretty light tackle to catch these fish. So adult kokanee generally travel in schools in the lake, just like salmon in the ocean. In the summertime, when the weather gets really warm, the top part of the lake starts heating up, so the fish will start moving down into the deep. That's where the zooplankton are, and that's what they're feeding on. The most common method of kokanee fishing is trolling. So if you ever read any magazine articles and watching the TV shows, that's what you usually see. It's trolling for kokanee. But I actually find the most effective way of catching kokanee is by bait fishing, by finding a school of fish and anchor the boat on top of them and catch them that way. So in this tutorial, let's take a look at bait fishing with kokanee, and I'll show you the methods, the tackle that you need, the timing, and everything you know so you can get out and do it yourself as well. So the very first thing to know is for kokanee fishing is you have to have a boat. Like I say, in the summertime, the fish tend to be in deeper water, so you got to have a boat to travel to parts of the lake where the water is quite deep. So for bait fishing, and like trolling, you got to have anchors. So 2 anchors for the boat, 1 for the front, 1 for the back. The reason you got to have 2 anchors so that if you only have 1 anchor down, the boat's going to be spinning, and that means you're not stationary, and your bait's going to be spinning around too much, and that's not good. So having 2 anchors, 1 on the front, 1 on the back, keeps your boat pretty still, so you can actually pinpoint your bait at one spot, and so the fish will come over and eat it like that. Like I said, the fish are not very big, so an ultralight spinning tackle is best. So a rod that's rated 2 to 6 pound test or 1 to 4 pound, it's ideal. You don't want to use a salmon rod for these fish because it's just much harder to catch these fish with a salmon rod, harder to detect the bites, and it's not very enjoyable too. You'd be like reeling a tiny sculpin on the rod. So a light rod you got to have, and you got to have a very small spinning reel to go with the light rod. So this is a Shimano Stratic CI 4 Plus 1000. You've seen me using this reel in quite a few other videos, mainly for casting and retrieving spoons and spinners because it's such a smooth reel, but it's a bit of an overkill if you're bait fishing because it's a pretty high-end spinning reel. The alternative is to get something like a Shimano Sahara 1000, same size reel, but this one here is more of an entry-level spinning reel. So the retail cost of the reel is less than half of the Stratic CI4 Plus. But it does the job. I've had this reel for several years now, and it's just as smooth, and it's great for this type of fishing, for bait fishing. So, like I say, kokanee tend to travel in big schools, and the best way to find these fish is by having a fish finder or depth sounder. So depth sounder has 2 purposes. One is you got to know how deep the water where you're fishing at, because by looking at the lake, it's very hard to guess how deep it is. But having a sounder, you can know exactly how deep it is below your boat. So that's where you would, find the right depth to set the anchor. And then the second thing is it's easier to spot the fish if you have a sounder. Have a big school of kokanee going by will sound off the alarms on the fish finder. And that's that's when you get alerted and get ready for the bites on your rod. So that's very important to have a sounder. So going back to the rod and reel, you gotta have a light rod and reel, like I said. The tiny spinning reel like this, what I do is I spool it with 10-pound test braided line. So this is Power Pro 10-pound test line. The diameter of this line is about 4 pounds. So it's very, very thin and it doesn't stretch because it's braided. So it's very, very sensitive. So if you're fishing at 40 feet, 50 feet deep, it's very, very easy to detect the bites because kokanee do bite the line, do bite the bait pretty lightly. So you gotta have very, very sensitive tackle to do this. So right at the end of the line, so let me just bring this rod up for you to see. So from the end of the main line, what I do is I tie a 3-way swivel, and then from one end of the swivel, it goes down to the leader where the hook is roughly around a foot long, and for the other leader down to the weight, it's probably twice as long as the hook leader. It's about 2 feet, 2.5 feet, and then you have a fixed weight, about ½ an ounce at the end. So when this weight goes down to the bottom and sits on the bottom, this hook, it's going to be sitting at about a foot or a little bit more, suspending just off the bottom, and that's where the fish are sitting usually. So to fish for these guys, you can use single salmon eggs, you can use krill. My favorite is actually using these deli shrimp. So deli shrimp, cooked deli shrimp, you can buy from supermarkets. It costs maybe $4 a pack. You can buy, and that will last you for several fishing trips. But obviously, deli shrimps don't come in red. So what I do is I get a bottle of Polski Pure red. That's my favorite color, and just sprinkle them into the shrimp and let it sit for a few hours. So I actually did up a batch just before I came today. So this one has been sitting in Pure for several hours now. So the reason you want to use Pure is there's actually a couple reasons for that. So one is to stiffen up the bait. So deli shrimp itself coming from the supermarket is pretty soggy, and that doesn't stay on the hook very well. By stiffening up the bait, by drawing the water out, it can stay on the hook much more easily. And the second thing is that Pure actually has quite a bit of krill sand in it. So by adding that to the shrimp, you're actually adding more smell to it and drawing the fish to your bait more easily. And the third thing is, again, red, my favorite color. I like to use a bit of color to it because if you're fishing at 40 feet deep, 50 feet deep, you want to use something, you want to color up your bait so the fish can see more easily. So hooking these fish onto the, hooking these bait onto the line, onto the hook is pretty easy. You don't want to pierce the bait onto the hook once because that would just fall off the hook pretty easily. But instead, what you want to do is you want to thread your hook through the along the body of the shrimp. So, and then I like to use half of the shrimp because a whole shrimp is too big, just like that. So this is a size 4 hook, steelhead hook. You can use size 6, size 8, but I find size 4 it's small enough for them to take the bait to get hooked. I find size 6 and size 8, I tend to lose a lot of fish. So once the bait is hooked, you just drop the line down to the bottom. Takes about 10-15 seconds to do so. And when it's on the bottom, that weight's gonna hit the bottom and your line's gonna go slack because there's no weight on the line anymore. When that happens, rolling the line a little bit until it's tight again. So you want that bait you want that weight just sitting above the bottom, so your bait is sitting maybe 2 feet off the bottom. That's where the fish tend to be hanging around. So kokanee is a very, very light biter. And like a trout tend to just come up and snatch the bait and swim away with it. Kokanee will nibble in the bait very, very lightly. So it's very important for you to watch that rod tip very carefully. And the best way to do this is to actually place this rod in a rod holder. So this is a spinning rod holder made by Scotty Fishing Products based on Vancouver Island. So with the rod holder, I have a rod holder extender down here. The reason I use this is to elevate this rod holder a little bit. I want to have this rod almost at my eye level. So instead of looking down at the rod tip, I want to look across, so that's easier to detect the bites that way. Here's another fish on the sounder. Typically you have to wait perhaps 15 minutes, 30 minutes for a school to come by, and that's when you will get 1 or 2 bites. Occasionally, when you get really lucky, you have a school of fish hanging around below the boat, and you just be getting bites constantly. So one of our latest video, the 30 minutes 20 kokanee video, we actually fished for 2 hours straight and just had a school of fish below us, and they were just feeding constantly, and we had bites pretty much every cast if we dropped the bait down, as you can see in the video. But that's pretty rare though. Most of the time you have to kind of sit back and wait, listen to the sounder, watch for the fish on the sounder, and when the fish come by, more often than not, that's when you start getting bites on the rod tip. And once you start getting bites, don't set the hook right away. Let that fish grab the bait. You can see the rod tip start going down slowly, and once the little bit of weight onto it, that's when you set the hook. And most of the time, when you hook a kokanee, they'll come straight up to the surface. So you gotta reel as fast as you can, try to keep the line tight so the fish doesn't fall off, and then they'll jump around and splash around. Try not to make it jump too much, because they will fall off the hook if they jump too much. Make sure you have a landing net. So what I have is one of these Gibbs Delta Tackle landing nets made of rubber, so the mesh is rubber. This has been working really well for me. It's a pretty big opening, so even though the fish is pretty small, they do circle around the boat pretty fast. Having a big opening really helps to net that fish. So there you have it. It's a very simple way of catching kokanee. Anyone can do it, like I said, as long as you have a boat, have a sounder, have a rod holder, and just have a ultralight spinning rod set up. And it's very easy. Definitely go out, give it a go, catch some tasty kokanee, and I'd love to hear how you do. And if you have any other questions, please leave a comment, and I'm always happy to answer your questions. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, and visit my website at fishingwithrod.com for more information on this fishery and any other fisheries in British Columbia. So until next time, good luck fishing.